right. Welcome into Cold Weather Bats. Familiar face on the other side here. Let's just get right to it. Brian Sakowski, the return, the prodigal son. What a time. How the hell are you?
Doing great, man. Coming to you live from the offices of Disharoon Park here in Charlottesville, Virginia. Go Who's? But no, man, it's been great. It's been great. It's starting to get cold. We're starting to wind down a little bit. So we're all looking forward to a couple of weeks of spending time with family and friends. I know I'm excited to get back to Downriver. Who wouldn't be? But other than that, man, I appreciate y'all having me. It's been a fun couple of years.
For those who don't know, if you're like extremely new here, Brian helped me co-found this whole thing and built it into what it was. So he is. There's only two original members of Cold Weather Bats, and you're looking at two of them on the screen right now. And then, of course,
I mean, I can just step away.
Yeah, right.
I'll leave you guys to it. I'll leave.
So it's nice to have Brian back. First time since everything that happened with his career, where he ended up at Duke to start. He's now at Virginia. Both roles, director of recruiting. And you still have the analytics tag at Virginia, or are you just director of recruiting now?
Yeah, just director of recruiting. We were when we moved to Virginia as a staff, we were able to add another staff member. We had a little bit more budget to do that, so roles got jumbled a little bit and streamlined. So now all I got to focus on is recruiting for the most part.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, today is all this in general is all about just reflecting back on what I believe to be one of the most interesting upcomings, and watching it all kind of unfold for you was awesome. Obviously, you're my boy, and obviously I was always happy for you. But not everyone knew and understood how much of this was premeditated and intentional for you, and how many times you said no to opportunities waiting for the right one, and then when the right one came, you kind of struck lightning in a bottle, and you're probably going to end up riding that wave for a long time for no other reason than your own work. So I'm just very interested and very happy to have you, and I know Michael is as well. So. Yeah. We're excited to dive in and just kind of talk about this, that, and everything else around the sun. But, I want to start with you and take us back to that day where you got the call from Duke and things kind of started to happen. And then, of course, you kind of had to give us the old Andy Toy Story, so long, partner. But take us through that process for you.
Yeah, it actually goes back to Jupiter of 2023. Kind of 2 months before I made the move or whatever, but Jupiter was where it started. Ty Blankmeyer, who is now the recruiting coordinator at Vanderbilt, at the time was the recruiting coordinator at Duke. And he'd come up to me at Jupiter. We were both sitting on golf carts watching baseball. And he was like, "Hey man, we're going to have a staff opening. Coach wants to make it more of a recruiting focused thing. Like, would you have interest in talking with us about it?" And I was like, "Brother, we can talk right now." Like, yeah, it's not like I had to think about it. You know what I mean? The funniest part about it was the first time Coach Pollard and I talked about the job was 5 days before my wedding. And so I was like, "Hey, Coach, like the answer is yes, man. But like, can we talk next week?"
You got a little event I'm hosting here soon.
Yeah. It was like, I'm busy this weekend, but we can talk on Monday, But no, it moved pretty quickly from there. Duke had a staff opening at the time. Their director of player development had left to go to Northwestern. That's Tyler Rost, who's now there as their recruiting coordinator. And obviously Northwestern's doing an incredible job there under Coach Greenspan. But anyways, that was the staff opening. Wanted it to rebrand a little bit towards more of a recruiting thing. Coach Pollard and I had some familiarity, obviously, from Alex Mooney. Playing at St. Mary's for us, and then going down to play at Duke for a couple of years before getting drafted. And then I'd known Ty Blankmeyer since I don't know, the mid-teens, when he was a scout with the Brewers and I was working with Perfect Game. Like, we got to know each other that way. So it was just like my name was something that was in their heads as far as a guy who might fit for the role, and had several conversations with Coach Pollard over the course of that November, and went down to Duke and interviewed and kind of looked around and offered me the job. And then we set it up to where my first day would be kind of the first day everybody came back for that spring semester in 2024. And it's wild to think that it's still been technically less than 2 years since I started working in college baseball. It feels like it's been 2 weeks as well as it feels like it's been 20 years sometimes. So, but either way, I'm rambling, but like, that's the story, man. It kind of went quickly, but it all started at Jupiter where so many of these amateur baseball stories do start.
You say rambling, but this is, I mean, as you know, the king of rambling.
Brandon and I could fill a podcast for 45 minutes with no one else involved. That's easy.
With barely hitting a single topic. No, it's I and that's kind of what goes right into my question is how in the world did you deal with him? Obviously, this is going to get released at a later time. We were supposed to, do this at 9 a.m. It's 11:02. We do okay staying on time, but
I can't take the blame for this one. But normally I can.
You can take a little bit of the blame.
Normally I can.
A little bit. We're down a cord.
We're down a cord.
So obviously, if you're listening, you see that Brandon and I are together today. We had this amazing goal to try to have everything perfect. We got the camera, the microphones. We're just down one cord, and if that's not cold other bats, I don't really know what is.
Yeah, Brian had sent me a text before we started. He said, "This is about as cold
as it gets."
Yep.
Right?
Yep. This is peak right here. Yeah.
So I guess you can see what we got behind us here. We got our player draft logo, and we're bringing it back. Obviously, you guys had this go on a couple years ago with you and Brandon both driving this. How was that experience for you doing that, as a whole, whether it was doing the recruiting, seeing all the kids, all of that as a whole to really, for me, this is my first player draft. What feedback can you give me to help me get ready for this?
Honestly, man, we were feeling our way through the dark on all of it. Like, we had no idea if it was going to be cool, like how to even make it cool, if we could, it was literally just this idea of like, all right, for a couple of years now, we've done this player draft as a podcast episode. What if we made it an actual event? And so obviously we got an incredible boost from Joe Mooney, as we always do. We got an incredible boost from the prep, Chad, coming out to do stuff like that. Hosting it at Mike Rice's place on the east side was great. Like, everything came together in a big way where and this is more philosophical than it is anything, but when you strip away needing to make money on something and you just are able to all push in one direction to do something cool, even if it's not going to be profitable, the world opens up to you as far as making stuff cool. And so that was always our biggest thing, was like, all right, well, if we need to pay somebody for this, then that's fine. We'll find a way to fundraise it. But like, Brandon and I made $0 on that. Like, Cold Weather Bats made $0 on that. And that was fine. We didn't want to, or sure, making money would have been cool, but that was never the focal point. That was never the driver. So it was literally just like hey man, what if we all get in one room and tape this and do it like we're the NFL draft, and like you be Mel Kiper and I'll be Todd McShay and Joe Mooney will be the combo of both, on top of being himself. And it was just like hey man, let's see if this works. And it ended up being really cool. And I think that I've gone back and watched it since, in the last couple of years, and it's still cool. I think that having the foundation idea and now what you guys are going to be able to do with it will make it even cooler. But yeah, man, the feedback is just the more players that you can actually get there, the better it's going to be. The more guys that you actually get to show up who will hear their names announced and walk up and take the handshake from the commissioner and then go get interviewed by whoever, the more that you can get that involved, the cooler it's going to be. But I think that it hasn't been long enough since we did that one to where people have forgotten about it, Right. So I think I haven't seen your roster. I'd imagine you're getting a fairly significant number of kids saying yes, but either way, it's going to be awesome. Just my biggest advice is don't worry about it that much. It's going to be cool. It ended up feeling like it took care of itself once we got everything ready to go,
And I couldn't decide which part was my favorite. When Joe Mooney said that Jason Oliver had Jeffrey Dahmer glasses on, or just the sheer amount of talent that there was in the room. If you go back and watch it and you hear all the names that were called, you get down to the final couple of rounds, and it's still kids that are right now playing impactful Power 4 baseball.
Yep.
And so it's pretty amazing. Now, we always kind of look back at that as quote unquote the golden era of this whole thing with Michigan high school baseball, and we're still very much so in the thick of it. It's still definitely a prominent But I'm curious. Obviously, now you're looking at things from a different lens than you were back then. Where has Michigan high school baseball gone since you last saw it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like anytime you're comparing modern times to like, well, this year had 20 guys go Power Four, or this year had 70 guys go D1, or whatever it is. Like the comparisons aren't always apples to apples in that sense. But like for me personally, just recruiting for Virginia, Michigan is my home. Like I'm tied in there at that, as we know, like cold weather bats was no small part of that. But so for me, it's whenever there's a player who I think is good enough to help us win baseball games in the ACC, I don't care where they're from, but I do take a little bit of extra pride when it's a kid from Michigan because, there's just that connectivity factor. Like we can talk about missing Coney Islands and the Detroit airport. Like, you know what I mean?
So, you've now made the move to Virginia. So let's kind of take that next step. You get to Duke. You say goodbye to CWB and all the other things, right? You say goodbye to Michigan, where you kind of I knew you were in Cleveland already and everything like that, but still West and getting now down into a different region. You and the wife had just gotten married, and you take a big, huge leap of faith together, which having seen it from a lens of a friend was obviously very gratifying, I think, and knowing how much support you have in that regard was always, really inspiring to me. But now you leave Duke and you end up at Virginia, which is like from my lens, you're one of my best pals, so I see it as okay. That's going to be a little bit tough to be so quick, but from a baseball coach's lens, that's just a Tuesday. Like that's kind of how things go in this world. So take us through that decision to move. I know it was as a whole staff, but just take us through that chapter.
Yeah, so it was the timing of it was a little unique in the sense that like, you lose game 3 of a super regional and your season's over, and like you were 1 win from Omaha, and then the next day you're like, hey, I actually have a different job now. But the decision-making process was easy. It was a slam dunk. I don't want to work for anybody else. Wherever Coach Pollard goes, as long as he has a spot on his staff for me, that's where I'll be. That's just we could wax poetic about my respect for that man for hours if you want to. But and it was, to my knowledge, a pretty similar decision-making process for the rest of the staff. There were 6 of us on staff at Duke. All 6 sort of instantaneously were like, yeah, now we work for Virginia because that's where Coach is. So making that move made it easier because you're just moving with your friends at that point. So, but getting that, like the area itself, like Charlottesville, Virginia, Central Virginia, like moving from the Triangle to here, that was a little bit of a culture shock in the sense that like, like I'm a city boy, like I'm from Detroit. I lived in Cleveland. Then we lived in Durham, and the Triangle is a huge area down in Carolina. And Charlottesville is a little bit more of like your traditional college town, like where I went to school and at Central, like Mount Pleasant is kind of on its own up there. And you could say that about East Lansing too. But Charlottesville is similar to that, where it's like, you're a little bit more out in the mountains, but what an unbelievably gorgeous place to live, man. Like we're right at the foot of the Blue Ridge Mountains. And when you're standing on the concourse of the stadium, like you can see the ridge line out there. Like it's unbelievably gorgeous to be here. So it depends on your perspective. Like I like the city, but at the same time, I've never lived in a place that's this gorgeous. And so I'm really appreciating that right now too.
So a little bit of a different view than Mount Pleasant.
Yeah, a little bit of a different view of Mount Pleasant. The highest elevation in Mount Pleasant is I've actually done the work on this. The highest elevation in Mount Pleasant, in my opinion, is the speed bump thing that's in the parking lot right on Mission. Like if you're trying to cut through there to get to Mission during traffic, you got to go over the speed bump. That is the highest elevation in town, in my opinion.
For you now being in the college game, is it any different than you anticipated it from before, obviously being with Perfect Game and in the high school ranks? Is the college game for you seemingly any different now, being into it for a couple of years now?
Definitely. The biggest thing that was a wake-up call for me was just how necessary and valuable depth is. Like not every single member of your team, starting lineup 1 through 9, your top 8 pitchers, not all of them are going to get through a 56 plus game season without some sort of injury. Injury might be too strong, but even if it's just a little something, maybe they're missing 4 or 5 games, whatever it is, the importance of depth was something that really kind of opened my eyes. The need to have 3 or 4 guys at each position that you trust and that you're comfortable with throwing out there. That piece of it, the constants of it was a wake-up call. Like my life at Perfect Game, and Brandon can speak to this too, was like, all right, you're going to go 2 months getting 4 hours a night of sleep, and then you're going to have 2 weeks where you don't even have to look up. Like you don't even have to wake up if you don't want to, so like it was kind of like this. And here it's very much just like, it's a straight line. So like getting used to that took some doing for me, just because I'd never had it. But now that we're locked into it and like I have my routine and my process, like I don't ever want to go back to the way it was. So this is much more healthy.
So the grand old question with anything college athletics these days, as you know where this is going, is NIL. It's just such a polarizing topic for a myriad of reasons. But take us through what you've kind of learned about NIL and navigating it, and just I think something we always try to do with this show, and it was you and I, was educate people who are listening and trying to get into it. So I guess tell a little bit about your side of it, specifically at Virginia, at Duke, the differences between the two, and then maybe give some advice to some kids so they understand what that entails once it comes time for that.
Yeah. And to start, I want to say that I am ardently, strongly, whatever word you want to say, in favor of what we're doing now, as far as like players getting paid or players having access to being paid based on what they're doing. I think that in baseball, the reality in baseball is that we're still very much like we went from an 11.7 scholarship limit to now there's no scholarship limit, and schools can set it how they want to, and conferences can set it how they want to. And then you have rev share and NIL on top of that. So I think that it's important for like the players listening that like in reality in baseball at the Division I level anyways, we're still like the extra money is still going towards like making sure no one pays for school first. Like that's the number one thing. You're not like, hey, I'm going to get a full ride and full coverage of everything, and I'm not going to have to pay a dime. And then on top of that, I'm going to make bank or whatever. That's more football and basketball right now. I think we're maybe headed that way. But right now, most schools, ourselves included, are trying to make it more so no one has to pay a dime to be here first, rather than giving guys money on top of that. Now, there's still that, of course. We're in a really, really good spot at Virginia as far as resources go and our ability to do that. I think that we're, I don't have everybody's numbers in front of me, but I would imagine that we are at the top or near the top of the ACC in terms of our resources and our ability to allocate that stuff to players. But I do want to stress that point I made already about like the reality is, we're going from 11.7 with a roster of 34. So there's, what's that math work out to? 22.3 of 2 or 3 years ago, 22.3 full scholarships that players would have to come up with on their own. So we're still trying to bridge that gap to where everybody's not paying anything, and then we'll move from there. I say that as an industry, not necessarily specific to Virginia, but as a D1 baseball entity. That's kind of what we're shooting for right now.
Is it something where it seems like once you guys get your footing, there's a new adjustment, a new change to it? Seems like, I mean, Brandon and I both follow it in football a lot. It seems like every time we blink, there's a new adjustment to how they're handling it.
Yeah, a little bit less so in baseball, just because there's not quite as much money existing as there is in football. Like, there's no baseball teams that have a $20 million budget like some of the biggest football programs do. At least insofar as like the money you have available to give to players. Pardon me. But the adjustment piece, like it's a constant, ever evolving adjustment thing for us. Like anything from tech to, we just got done installing our Maven lab here in the stadium. That is state of the art. And there's only 3 programs in the country that have a lab that's dedicated to both pitching and hitting, not just pitching. And so that's one of those pieces that we talk about where like, All right, we pulled ahead in that race right now, but at this time next year, the way how quick everything moves, we're going to be talking about needing to make more adjustments in the tech space or in the data space, and we're going to be talking about constantly needing to make adjustments in terms of facilities and the stadium and the scoreboard and the field surface and whatever. Like, it's like a I don't know what the phrase I'm trying to come up with here. It's like like an arms race in a lot of ways.
You're always chasing the next thing.
Yep. We're always chasing the next thing. So, and that's awesome. Like, I'm super grateful to be in a spot where we can do that. Like, that's amazing. But that doesn't mean that the work ever stops, you know?
So again, kind of back into the education side of things, and, you know, the kids who are listening, I'd say, I don't know what the percentage is of our listeners that are going to go play in the ACC, but it's small, right? I mean, it's extremely small. But for those who aren't, you're not only an expert in recruiting at the level that you coach at, but you also spent, you know, however, over a decade covering it from a media perspective and being involved in it from a scouting perspective. In today's world, with so many changes, you know, you covered JUCO at such a high level for a long time. I know how much you love JUCO baseball. That has been more prominent now than it ever has been. It's an avenue that kids are not only taking, they're taking without redundancy like they were in the past, where it kind of felt like a little reluctant to go play JUCO. Now it's much more of a sound and logical decision for obvious reasons, as opposed to the past where you're trying to sell kids on it, et cetera. So for those kids out there that are in like the fringe area where they're like, okay, I've got these Division II offers, but I've also got this JUCO offer. This JUCO thinks I can go D1, but also there's so many things with the portal where it's like this, that, the other thing. What are some of the things that you can point out to somebody who's maybe in that area where they're trying to figure out where to go? What's important nowadays for a prospective athlete playing baseball?
Yeah. Nowadays with the portal, man, like, upward mobility is very much a thing. Maybe where it wasn't previously, or maybe it was just limited to graduate transfers previously. But so nowadays, like, and it kind of sucks to say out loud a little bit, but where you go doesn't have to be where you end up. And that was sort of the whole entire mantra of JUCO forever, was like, come here for 2 years, play a ton, get good, go to wherever you want to go. That's still the case in junior college. I can't even tell you how much time watching JUCO this past fall, in some places that you wouldn't even believe. But anyways, the point stands. Like, to me, it still comes back to personal and individual fit in recruiting. That is the most important thing. You can get the sexiest offer you've ever even conceived, and that place might not be a fit for you. You know, whether that's Virginia or otherwise, it might not be a fit. You have to take into account so many different variables when it comes to making your decision on your future. Distance from home is one that comes up, like ease to get to. Like, don't you want your parents to come watch you play a bunch? Like, if you do or if you don't, that's something that goes into it. If you're going to school, a 6-hour plane ride away from home, like, that's going to become a problem. It could be cost is a huge one. We just got done talking about how baseball isn't football in the sense of everybody's making money or whatever. So cost is a thing. And the biggest thing, especially for guys that are maybe a little older in the process, so 16, 17 years old, you should have a general understanding of what you want to study when you go to school. And that's not to say you can't change your mind. I'm a living example of that. I changed my major like 3 or 4 times in school, to my detriment. In terms of how long I had to be there to finish. But anyways, you should have a general understanding, and maybe you don't know what you want to study, but you do know what you don't want to study. And so if you're considering a school that's entire like essence is we're the #1 school in blank, and that's not at all what you're interested in, well, maybe that should tell you something too. But you talked about JUCO, Brandon. I still love it. I still love it a lot. I think it's an awesome opportunity for any number of players. It doesn't have to be because you're a late bloomer. It doesn't have to be because you're maybe not great in the classroom. You can have a 4.2 GPA and be fully physically developed and go to JUCO and play a ton more than you would play at a Division I or whatever school, not in terms of your playing time as an individual, but in terms of like the restrictions and rules that they have at that level for practicing games. You can play 70, 80 games in a year there because you'll play 20 games in the fall at the JUCO level, on top of practicing a ton, on top of spending a ton of time in the weight room, on top of knocking out your basic courses early and inexpensively in a lot of ways. So I'm a big proponent of the level. You guys know that. I've been talking about that for over a decade now. But yeah, again, with the rambling, I hope I answered the question.
Oh, you did. And kind of half answer next, but I'll still ask it. Let's say you have a high school sophomore, 16-year-old sitting in front of you saying, Brian, what the heck do I do to start my recruitment? You know, say he's an upper level potential player. Even if not, where should he start, and what should his plan be to start his recruitments?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways you can go with that. My first instinct is to always say go to camps. If you have that ability financially and your travel schedule allows for it, pick out a handful of schools that you have super, super high interest in, that they check boxes for you, even at 15 or 16 years old, where you're not super honed in on what you want. You know, like I said, you can have a general idea of what you want. So pick a handful of schools that really stand out to you, go to camps there. It's real easy to just Google like Virginia baseball camps, for example, and it'll come up. On top of that, I would say that even places that you're not going to go camp at, send an email to the director of recruiting guy like me, or just go to the roster page of that program and you'll find some coach with the word recruiting in his name. Email that guy. I'm going to steal this directly from Coach Bakich at Clemson, because I think it's a brilliant idea and he's the guy I heard it from first, so I'll give him credit. In your subject line on the email, give me your full name, just your first and last name. Give me your grad year. Give me your grades. Tell me what your GPA is. And if you have a test score, include that too. And then the last piece of the subject line should be the metric that is strongest, the thing that you do that is the loudest. 110 exit velo, 92 mile an hour fastball, 3,000 spin rate breaking ball, 6.5, 60, whatever it is that you do loudest, include that in the subject line. And then in the body of the email, and this goes to, I'm going to talk about social media here too, in the sense that like the very first thing I do, if Brandon calls me and says, hey man, heard about this kid at blank high school in Michigan. He's a freshman. He's going to be a sophomore, but I heard it's really, really loud, whatever. Just wanted you to be aware of it. The first thing I'm doing is going to Twitter.
Yep.
Like literally probably within 30 seconds of hearing the name, I'm going to open Twitter. And so, excuse me 1 second. Pardon me. So for me, having your first and last name as your name on Twitter is vitally important. I have no idea who @QMoney86 is. I know who Brandon Justice is. You know what I mean? So like my point is like you can make your whatever you want to, but have your display name be your first and last name so that you're searchable for guys like me who are trying to find you. Include the link to your social medias in that email. You don't have to have this buttoned up professional, I'm trying to be the president of the United States caliber social media, but social media can be a deterrent in recruiting too, depending on what you post out there. But in my opinion, today's kids they're way better than our generation was with that stuff, because they know, like our generation didn't know any better. Like I was in high school when MySpace came out and college when Facebook came out, and we didn't know that the internet was forever. Now kids understand that a little more inherently because they're brought up with it. So I'm not as worried about that. But yeah, I just keep the email light. Don't tell me what your favorite color is. Like, I don't care. It's more just like introduce yourself to me. Hey, coach, I'm interested in the University of Virginia. You guys have this degree study that I'm really interested in. Here's my metrics. Here's my summer schedule. Here's my coach's contact information. And here's my social media link. And then you can use your social media like Huddle, like a lot of guys do in football, where it's pretty much just a scroll of your highlights. Yep. Anytime PG or PBR or whoever tweets about you, repost it. Anytime Cold Weather Bats tweets about you, repost it. Anytime that you've achieved a new level of a certain metric, take a video of it and post it. Like, coach, I PR'd today. Great. Where's the video? Like stuff like that. I think there's any number of things that can be valuable. And another thing is, fellas, and I'm going to say this, I'm going to speak this more to the kids who are listening. I can tell when it's AI.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I can tell when you asked ChatGPT to write you a recruiting email. I could tell. And that to me says that you're not all that interested in using your own brain, which to me says that you're not all that interested in playing at Virginia. I know I'm a little hard line on that. I'm not anti-AI. I just think that like anytime we have the opportunity to actually just use our own brains, we should.
Yeah. I think we've discussed that at large privately. They really need to understand how obvious it is. When you use that really long dash hyphen, like don't use that because you are going like that doesn't come from a natural brain of a 16-year-old. That doesn't happen.
Right.
You say that, but I do type like that.
I use an M dash. Yeah, I'll rip an M dash once in a while.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, written as much as we have.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It is a useful thing. But I saw a tweet about this probably a few months ago where it said he goes like the person who had tweeted was I think it was a woman who tweeted it, and she said I literally can't use it anymore because as soon as I do, I make myself look like I just did exactly what you are saying not to do, and so it's a useful way of getting a cadence in there, and it adds a nice tone. I think it reads well when it's done right, but unfortunately, it's been GPT one way or another, which is becoming.
You know what's the new thing too, and not just go down this AI train, but the new thing is, like when you type it in, you get your prompt and you copy and paste it, it'll have like those horizontal lines, like the page breaks. I'll get those now in emails back to me with the page breaks, and sometimes with the prompt from ChatGPT that's like, "Hey, Michael, below is your response. Let me know if there's any changes." I'm like, you write it yourself. Like it's people have gotten so reliant on it, and I couldn't even imagine being a student athlete right now trying to deal with this when you'd use it to some extent, right? You'd have to just for research purposes, but for the people that are actually, I'd hate to be a professor right now or a teacher. To grade on this. I'm sure they have their own systems, but the people that are, using it in the right way, it is a very helpful tool, and it can be a helpful tool for these types of things too. Just not your entirety.
Use it to get ideas. I just don't want to copy and paste. Like I want to see that you thought a little bit,
Yeah, and all that to say that in today's world, having the whole conversation we just had, in today's world, if you want to play college baseball at the next level, you have more accessible information and resources and tools now more than ever. I try to tell our kids at Wyandotte when they say, "Hey, I want to play college baseball," it's like, okay, that's the first step. You want to do it. Everything else it can happen. So long as you want to, there's an opportunity. It might be D3 JUCO for some kids, but guess what? You're playing baseball, and that's really what matters. So all that to be said, if you're out there and you want to play, there's a way these days. It's not like it used to be where if you're good enough, they'll find you, quote unquote, which was the most true statement of all time, I think, Brian, and I agree wholeheartedly. We tried to find them. It wasn't always the case, but yeah. Well, with all that said, the prodigal son has returned. It was quite the event. We could go on for another 2 hours if we really needed to, and maybe over time, over these next couple of years, we will in totality, cumulative. But always great to talk to you. Always good to see your face. Miss you back home. I'm sure I'll be seeing you over break. We're excited to see you. Going to be watching a lot of Virginia baseball this spring, the same way I watched the Blue Devils these past 2 years, and excited to see what the Who's can do. I know you guys got a great roster. I'm seeing all of these draft projections and everything. I know Garcia's the kid, but there's so many other ones that you guys have as well on your list. Exciting incoming freshman class. You're building your first class in your first full year this year, which is exciting. And I know how hard you work. I know how honest of a man you are. I know how highly you speak of Pollard, so I'm sure there'll be great things happening for the Who's this season. So appreciate you coming on, man. Always a pleasure.
Thanks for having me, fellas. It's been awesome to see cold weather bats kind of take on new life in the sense that, like, I didn't think that it was going to stop because I left or anything, but the way that you guys have kind of grabbed it and run with it, it's been awesome to see. I still listen to every episode, like, still just super awesome to see, guys.
Well, we're trying to keep it going. It's always a work in progress. We're trying to get better, staying on schedule, but no, we're excited for what's to come. Brent and I, we talk about all these ideas that we have coming up. There's so many new ideas that are going to be coming to the forefront here soon, and we're very excited for everything that's here to come.
And to cap this off, just make sure everybody knows this. I said this we had that first episode after you had departed and kind of dedicated it to you and talked a little bit about you and everything. I know you listened to it, but none of this is here without you. That podcast first episode where you kind of took a shot in the dark, and we weren't strangers, but we were acquaintances at best, I would say. And I got one of my best friends I'll ever have, not just in baseball but in life, out of this. And this whole thing doesn't happen without you, and everyone should know that. So we appreciate you. Go Who's from way up north, and we'll be seeing you here soon.
Looking forward to it, fellas. Thank you again.